Good morning, everyone. Kris here with Inspired Energy. Joining me again this morning, Hartwell. Good morning, Hartwell.
Good morning, Kris. Good morning, everyone.
Yes, so this morning we're diving into the creative channels in human design. So, can you tell us a little bit about what creativity is as far as human design, their perspective on it?
Well, the one of the great powers of human design is it helps us make distinctions between different energies. I mean, prior to human design, I probably thought, well, creativity is painting stuff and music and making a business. It might have been a little bit narrower,
Mm-hmm.
but now through the lens of human design, there are at least seven ways to talk about creativity. There's, seven different flavors. And
Wow.
so I find that really interesting.
I think people would find that interesting considering I believe that most people's idea of creativity is, oh, an artist, a dancer, a musician, a poet. But to learn that it goes deeper than that would be quite valuable. So,
Yeah. And then they
what
think if they can't paint or something, then they're not creative, right?
exactly. So, which channels are considered the creative ones in human design?
Well, there is the channel of perfected form, 1057. There's the channel of competitiveness, 2551. There is the channel of creative expression, which is 1-8. There is the channel of talent, which is 4816. 3635 is another one, which is the channel of the experiencer. And fifth channel 59.6, which is the channel of mating, and channel 4426, the channel of
Mm.
um, a transmitter. You know,
So let's just jump right in, okay? Because
yeah.
there's so many. Um, so this is just part one, by the way, guys. So what is the flavor of the 1057 is where you wanted to start. So
The
what can you say?
1057, which is the channel of perfected form, is part of the integration circuitry, which is a subset of the individual circuitry, and it's all about empowerment. And this joins gate 10, which is the behavior of the self, with gate 57, which is in the spleen, which is a gate of intuitive insight. And when those come together, you see the spleen is about survival, and 10 is about love of the self. So bring them together, and you have the ability to ensure your own physical survival um, by knowing exactly what it is you need to create.
Mm.
Does that make sense?
You mean like the environment that you need to create in order to survive, or like what you need to do to survive, like as far as a
Kind of
job?
like the environment.
Yeah.
So perfected form thrives in creating and designing environments that ensure survival. So a
Mm-hmm.
lot of people like architects have this, or they
Mm-hmm.
know exactly what to do. It's kind of like manifesting the life that you want. It's like having I have an idea, boom, 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 boom. It
Mm-hmm.
makes me think of, I mean, I haven't researched Tesla, but it makes me think of him
Mm-hmm.
because he had this ability to build things in his mind before he even built them in physical reality.
Mm-hmm.
And, he modeled it in his mind.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is kind of the architectural mind. This is the mind that can conceive of things and then build them because they know what is right.
Right.
And that creation is born from an intuitive place.
Mm-hmm.
So very fascinating.
So,
And
is there anything else you want to say about the perfected form before we move on to the 2551?
as we go through all of these, what I want you to think of is your relationship to these things. I mean, if you kind of think, oh my God, that sounds so cool, and I don't have it, and
Mm-hmm.
then you have an experience about that, know that every one of us has an experience about all of these things.
Mm-hmm.
So, for instance, you might have a consistent experience of it because it's a defined channel for you. Or you might have an inconsistent experience because you have one of the gates or you might have an open experience. So even though we don't all have the same relationship to these energies, we all do have an experience of all of the energies.
Well, I imagine because we're all interacting with each other, and we talk about triggers or, things like that.
Yes.
The energy can stimulate a reaction in somebody.
So, I mean, to tell you the truth, Kris, I don't 100% understand this myself, but it's something that my own teachers in human design have been really, really reinforcing. Don't think of yourself as being somehow outside of these experiences, even if you don't have them. You just have a different way of
Entering
interfacing
into
with
it.
them.
Yeah.
Yes.
For sure. Okay. So
So
go ahead.
moving on to
Yep.
channel
You
2551.
read my mind.
And I am going to toggle a little bit between I've been immersed now in the language of human design and now BG5, the business application. So I'm going to be moving between different languages, but if you're familiar with the body graph, you can follow me. The 2551 is the bridge between the lower self, the will's power center, the ego, and the G center, which is the higher self. And it's called the channel of competitiveness. That's its strength. Gate 51 is initiative. Gate 55 is innocence. Now,
25.
this is about the creativity that arises as we seek to transcend our previous limitations. So the competitiveness of this, it can look like competitiveness towards outside forces, but this is often the energy that propels somebody to push their own boundaries.
Yeah.
Being
Test their own
competitive with
limits.
themselves.
Yeah.
And so and it's part of the centering circuit. This is part of what lives at the very center of our beings as a society. And it's that creativity that pushes the envelope in all areas of life. And it seeks its own empowerment, is what it does.
So here's an interesting question that just got triggered for me. Could be off topic. I don't know. But you were saying how it goes to the G center or the higher self. So if somebody doesn't have any gates to the higher self and doesn't have the higher self defined, then they're interacting with absolutely everybody's energy. And then it's like they could take on anybody's purpose. So they're like a tool. Like, I don't know. It's like or a weapon that can be wielded. Like you know what I mean? For somebody who does have that defined.
Maybe. I mean, those are the kind of ideas that I really encourage both in myself and in others who are studying human design with me. It's like, oh, what would be the implications of that?
Well, I challenge you.
One of the implications of it is that if the G center is the place of purpose, identity, and the higher self, then it means that somebody who's open in the G center is amplifying everybody's connection. So it can be this incredible experience of a multifaceted connection to the higher self because you're amplifying everybody that you meet. And it means that, in response to those people, you are feeling all the different threads of purpose that motivate or infuse the collective.
Yeah.
Does that?
Well, it's interesting because it's like, for example, this is now I'm going personal because for me, all of a sudden, what it triggers is that's why I can see everybody else's potential.
Yes.
Because I'm totally open. I mean, I don't have a gate, I don't have a channel, I don't have anything going to the G center. So when somebody starts speaking to me, I can see the possibilities in everything, right?
Yeah.
Or in them, right? Yeah.
Absolutely.
So that's interesting. That's an epiphany. There you go.
Wonderful. I like when the epiphanies are popping.
So get us back on track then, Hartwell, with 2551.
All right. So, yeah. So the creativity here is all about empowering the individual through their reaching beyond the previous limitations,
Mm-hmm.
um, going beyond established boundaries. Um, and this will often result in something very surprising, which is, of course, part of the hallmark of the individual circuitry, which these two first ones have been.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Now let's move into the third one for today.
1-8.
The third one for today is also individual, but this
Mm-hmm.
is part of the knowing circuit, the 1-8. Um, and this is called the channel of creative self-expression. The design of being a role model.
Mm-hmm.
So in some ways, this is the only one with creative actually part of its name. And so,
Mm-hmm.
up until recently, I wasn't clearly aware of these other forms of creativity. So this is the one I look to.
Mm-hmm.
So with the one, we have the gate of self-expression. Um, Sorry, this is a channel of inspiration. I misnamed it a moment ago. So this is a gate of self-expression, and it's kind of like the energy of I did it my way, like the Frank
Mm-hmm.
Sinatra song. It's like
Well,
this, yeah,
I
this
dress
urge
my
to,
way. Trendsetters, right? They're going to do things in a unique way that feels good to them. Is that what you mean?
yeah, it's like they're driven, driven to put their own unique spin on everything, and they
Mm-hmm.
just can't be anything else.
Mm-hmm.
And so the creativity of this channel, it might express itself as creative works.
Mm-hmm.
It might look like a painter or an artist or something like that. They might create something in as a product, but they might not. The creativity might be simply in the way they move through the world, the way they speak, the way they present themselves.
Mm-hmm.
um, I mean, it's not always easy to see ourselves, but I have my son, my conscious son in gate one. So you guys can tell me, does Hartwell have his own individual spin on things? Is he unique in some way?
Well,
So
of
does
course
he
you
have to
are.
do it his own way?
Of course, but I think also what that triggered for me was when we have conversations and I think we're saying the same thing, but you're like, no, we're not. I'm like, but I see it the same, but you don't, right? So I think that's part of it too. You expressing yourself in your own unique way, like, yeah.
Potentially, yes.
Hmm. Yeah.
And I mean, the 8 is called the gate of contribution.
Hmm.
Um, and I mean, together, the channel of inspiration attracts. It's a very solitary energy, but it
Hmm.
attracts attention. So the person is doing it their own way. They're not really necessarily, they're not looking for attention, but they attract it in some
Hmm.
way, is the idea here. And
Yeah.
the eight wants to promote things, wants to contribute. And so, you could be, when we talk about presence, as somebody who has perhaps a creative presence or somehow is sparky in the world and seems like they are creative. That's kind of this channel of inspiration. And I know my sister has this channel. She has the
Hmm.
entire channel. And I mean, she does not consider herself creative, and she's an accountant.
Hmm.
And yet when I observe her, I see this energy that sparks people,
Hmm.
that comes across as unique, and
Well,
it's
accounting can be very creative.
well, I don't
You know what I mean? Yeah.
well, yeah, I mean, nefarious people can be very creative with their
Yes.
their accounting, uh, with the way they work money. But
Yeah.
it's she's not in any way an artist, and
Hmm.
she does not consider herself creative. And yet, me observing her says, "Wow, she has something that attracts my attention. What is that?"
Hmm. Yeah.
And so, but this 1-8 is something that we would, probably fits into our classic ideas about what creativity looks like.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah, for sure. So, any last thoughts about creativity and the flavors that it comes in and what we can look forward to next week?
um, next week, yeah, we talk about talent. We talk about talent. We talk about sex.
Oh,
We talk about the creativity of salesmanship. You
hmm.
know, the of so yeah, it'll be interesting next week. But
Hmm.
keep in mind what I said already, which is don't be disheartened if you don't have any of these gates. Um, try and my way of thinking about this more and more is that we're all part of a unified consciousness, a unified being. And we all have our place within that being, and we all have and can have an experience of all of these things. It's
Right.
just,
The level and intensity and things that you experience, it is different than somebody who's defined, right?
yes, we all have an experience, but the way we interface with these energies is different from each other and is
Hmm.
our own unique kind of way.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Well, thank you all for joining us today. Keep in mind, Hartwell has a human design course starting in October. We should be releasing in the next week the posters and stuff for it, so you can get signed up for that if you feel the calling to dive deeper into human design and understand it even more. These little videos that we do every Wednesday is just to, dive into it a little bit. So if you're interested in that, you can contact us here at Clair-i-tea, or if you want a reading from Hartwell or to dive deeper into a channel or a gate or something and you want to know more about it, we would certainly book a reading for you here. So with that, we'll say God bless everybody. Have a blessed day and we'll see you next week. Bye bye.